Okay, look, the transportation problem on the planet Earth is easy. First you get rid of the fuel, then you get rid of the batteries. You know, there's no problem, right? You know, they're not getting rid of the fuel and they're not getting rid of the batteries. Look, what we built, you know, they've got electric drives, you know, and we're using solar through 2001 to 2007, and going down the highways of this continent, you know, not using fuel. But we had batteries. We had the lithium-ion batteries that they're now touting to be the answer for electric cars. No, we found they burn out. You know, they're expensive. They become heavy as you like pile more and more for all the safety features the fuel is dumped on them, and so on and so forth. So then, what did I do? Started with the air turbines. And this was the last one. And the air turbines work, you know. They spin. You can see the videos of them, right? They spin from the frontal air pressure, which is a constant. The light was not a constant, and we're bitterly criticized. What do you do at night? What if it's raining? Blah, blah, blah. And then the old peasants with their pitchforks are saying, hey, you only go to town when it's nice and bright and shiny. No. You know. But so the air can do half of the work. We started with small ones, like this one, and worked up to a 4-footer. But levitation bearings were not in yet. I'm using, getting the resistance of regular bearings, automotive bearings. So, since the vertical ones worked so well with levitation magnets under them to cut the resistance down, having two small ones at the end, where your turn signals are now in your car, and having your 3-phase generators, maybe 3 inches in diameter, of 6 magnets doing AC current coming out of them, DC converted to AC. You can have 4 or 6, and it takes care of half of your needed input. Anything over 20 miles per hour. Okay, here's an example of a levitated bearing with a 2-pole sideways magnet in the middle. But with the metal axle, it was too heavy for a coil to turn. Coils have been in a crisis. This is a Starship coil. And Bedini's and others were using monopole, and we're using ferrite magnets because the neomagnets were pulling on their electromagnet windings too much. So then Starship coils came in, and they started to like spread out the energy, but they were sort of weak, so people wanted to put something in the center, that equivalent of steel cores, soft steel cores that are in transformers and whatnot. Right, here's an example of a collapsed Starship with actually from 16 ohm speaker magnets in the middle. Right, they have ring magnets around a central magnet, more powerful central magnet, and so on. But since they retain magnetic force, they can't change polarities. So what changes polarities? Dolce, soft, they call it soft ferrite, and it's an old TV set. So you'll see on the street, they're taking all these old TV sets and ripping them out because they don't make them anymore. They made them smaller and smaller with the thing, and they don't retain magnetism. They adapt to magnetism because they have metal particles in them, but they don't retain it. So they can change polarity, which is exactly what they were used for. Here's some that I found recently, you know, and haven't used for coiling yet. So this could be the center of your Starship or your window, the various coil windings that we found. So when we were doing magnets as gearing, we used both monopole rings, which they've used as Bedinis with bicycle wheels and whatnot, and dual bipolar. And the bipolar has a lot more torque. As soon as you start speeding up, if there's more resistance, it starts skipping. And this has been the problem with monopole motors right through. They have no torque. And even like Hitler's space program that you see on the net, you know, they had to like keep the unit going. They couldn't land and stop it, and they burned the ground. You read in the late 40s and whatnot where they left radiation and thing because the plasma generator had to keep going at a high speed. If they closed it down, they couldn't start it again until they got bipolar magnets. So here's another example. What we're doing is using a bicycle part here to run the magnetic gearing to run all of these generators, right, on tin cans. And they produce some energy, but you can't use them in cars, you know. It's too awkward, the position, you know. You see horizontal bicycles on the street occasionally, old men, you know, on horizontal bicycles, they're using that type of thing. I just wanted to use that as an example of how important it is to have bipolar coils to activate the motors, and to have so that the motors can be compact and with the 6 magnet combination. That's standard 3-phase near the center because opposing ones attract each other. So here's some of the equipment, you know. Here are round magnets, so that if your coils tend to freeze on you, cylinder magnets with their poles outward will only give readings to the electronic device right at the peak and will break off between north-south on a bipolar Hall's effect sensor very readily. So this brings us to the electronics. And there's a problem. There's very little problem getting an output of what you're doing here. What we're doing here basically is we're taking 1 volt cells, 5 volt, whatever you've got for all your electronic devices, and turning it into a pulsed thing, but a changing pulse thing. You can change it with a potentiometer, you know, and speed it up, or the Hall effect, as it like turns the motor faster and faster, speeds it up, right? Because it keeps changing the signal input. Okay, so here's what I'm working on right now. So here is an alternating, pulsating thing, but pulsating and alternating current. So what you're creating here is a kind of AC, right? You can see that they're going back and forth, back and forth. This one is coming right out of your 555 timer. And here is the potentiometer replacing the Hall effect. So if it's going slow, your motor, there. And if it's going faster, whoops, my finger slipped. Okay, and I have them on a couple of temporary switches here, which I'm trying to hold down. And you can see it, well, it's like assigned to the bar or something that goes up. That's done with a mechanical device. And here I have relays, you know, and the relay is to remove the circuit from the signal circuit to the power circuit, right? So here, I think this is the ones I press. I've got 20 volts, and here I've got 8 or 10 volts, okay? So as I press this, there it goes. Are you aimed at that?
Yeah.
Okay. And here's my potentiometer. And you can hear it too. This is the first time I've ever heard the energy move through relays. So you see your power output through your coils can be speeded up and slowed down. So I haven't had time yet to mount a similar one, which was sent in a package very cheaply to me, to see if it works between the negative and the output in accordance with this LED. This one is in accordance with the positive LED. So that would be two power ones alternating. These are neons, right? And a coil is put in between the neons because the neons represent infinite resistance. And when they stop being in infinite resistance, but again, that's why it's so bright with very little energy. So, because relays and that clicking of those little doorbell chimes limits you to, I don't know, 600 or 800, less than 1,000 probably revolutions per minute. It's only a stopgap because what you want is 10,000, a lot of revolutions. So the newest thing I'm working on, and I'm not the only one, there's a lot of people, is opto-coupling. And here's two circuits I found at the library on the net. And one of them shows an LED and a Darlington NPN transistor, and outputting to this and running your coil, which would give a north pole as your Hall effect turned off. And there's just a diode and an extra little NPN and a resistor. It's a very simple circuit. So this is a photo cell that I have right above a bright LED, to test that circuit. And this is a Darlington that I stripped off of some sort of optical device thrown away. And so I'm testing that. This circuit, which is even more mysterious to us, has two super bright LEDs, one of which is powered here, and one of which picks up the power. And here you've got two NPN MOSFETs that look very similar to what they call the gate, the MOSFET gate in electronics, but it's run by the input from the base from the induced LED. Whoa, good news. Here's a couple of Zeners and you got two outputs, and one output is alternating the other output. And you can speed up the device as fast as to go as fast as you want, right? Because it's not dependent on any mechanical effect. So this is what I just began working on yesterday. And here I'll plug it in for you so that you can see. Okay. So here we've got the same situation, with a better timed 555 with an NPN and a couple of diodes to clarify it. And we've got a photo cell here. And I don't have an extra super bright, so I got just a bright red here. This probably takes special equipment. And here's my two temporaries. So as I press both temporaries, you get the same alternating current that you saw in the other ones, right? And you've got the same speed up. Better than the other one because the values chosen of the capacitors and resistors was better. So if they're translating into a power thing, and I've got them connected to see what kind of voltage they are, and I don't get any voltage, I'll tell you right now, something's wrong. It may be because this Darlington is too old or too powerful or something, it needs more input, or the photo cell may be obsolete and not work, photoresistor cell. And it may be the super bright LEDs. This is a Z34, and he claims that his circuit worked with all kinds of MOSFETs, Z44 and Z34, among others, and so on. So, this is what I'm working on, but, it'll be a very simple circuit using very little energy. And what you arrive at is a car that basically runs, and especially for women doing the shopping and whatnot, the smart car with the two places and a place for groceries in back and a kid in the middle or so on, and maybe a baby in the back. You know, it should be light, less than 1,000 pounds, and you go to the grocery store and you go to the store and you go, you know, the school and all the places you gotta go, and you want a cheap vehicle. You don't give a damn about power. You don't give a damn about all of these safety devices and the rest of them. You're not going fast enough to crash. So that's the kind of urban transport. You know, you're going to have a battery like this of 10 volts, 9 or 10 volts, you know, and a 24 volt battery and a bunch of capacitors. And that's all you need to run two 1,500 or 2,000 magnetic drives with regenerative braking, all the things they worked on in the early years of this century. And that's the solution. You got rid then of the fuel, and you got rid of the batteries. Now, one final note. Humanity, first of all, we've been wasting light on humanity when it could have been passing important information and energy. Right? And we're just giving light to humanity so that it can look at objects and like see what it wants to see as animals and so on. So the aliens are going to help us out because the oil syndicate is too powerful on Earth. So the aliens are coming to our aid to introduce us into instituting this technology. You know, because humans are too weak. They're too confused by propaganda and so on. The oil companies have stomped over everybody. Any organized group, whether they're socialists or whatnot, all end up joining the oil dictatorship. So the news is that the aliens have already taken out the flying saucer fleet based on old atomic plasmas and so on and so forth from that the U.S. and Russia and China built in the 90s. And that they'll be moving on next to the stratosphere and the jets that use a lot of fuel and the helicopters and the rest of the military stuff until they move down to the car level. And we know that insurrections have been breaking out all over the world of pedestrians from mountain villages and farming villages on foot pitted against convoys of dictators or neo-colonial invaders in tanks and so on and so forth with air cover on the highways. So, you know, this amounts to a war to save the planet, and it isn't saving it from the old thing of global warming. You know, you could already tell that there might be maybe compensations, maybe solar things. It's just not good for the air, and it's not good for the resources to take fuel and burn it. You know, plastics can be recycled hundreds of times. Something can be a garbage bag today, a toothbrush tomorrow, and part of your car the next week. Fuel, when you burn it, after elaborate, expensive, it's breaking all the economies of Earth, and yet capitalism has become dependent on it. You've got to buy it all the time, you know. You got to buy it. They're going to say, oh, it's too expensive. We can't have all those magnets and generators. Yeah, the magnets. One generator is like one fuel. One refueling, one gas tank of fuel equals one generator, and you've got maybe 10 or 8 or 10 in your car, right, to eliminate fuel. So, 10 loads of fuel. And then you can use your generators for years, you know, or centuries even. I don't know. You know, it doesn't make any kind of economic sense whatsoever. It's a culture of waste. We've developed a culture of waste, and the companies that induce people to waste go up, and the companies that sell them a hammer that lasts for a century go down and go broke. So that's got to change, and the aliens are going to come and change it. It's a different social system and a different basis, technological basis to the planet. And then we'll be part of the Galactic Federation or whatever they call it, you know, and whatnot. They're going to argue, is it federal or commonwealth or what do you call it, confederate or something. No. With mental telepathy and the instant thing, they're not after us resources. They got resources all over the place because they got special technologies that are way beyond any technologies we have, particularly fuelist ones. which are the leaders of the resistance to the fake alien invasion, who are like trying to weed out the population themselves and at the same time, defeat the aliens so that they can dictate terms in a peace treaty. These are complete gung-ho idiots, brass hats idiots, that are in a past, living in the past. So, there's a new time machine coming. We have the time machine of what people have heard of, and people going back centuries that they only know Latin, that they were taught and quit school when they were in 3rd grade and are still using a plow or whatever. This is the Earth time machine, and it's got modest parameters. But the time machines that are coming are called star portals and so on and so forth. And they're from the speeding up of these kind of electronic circuits in order to go other places and other times and stay in the same place in another time and so on and so forth, in parallel worlds and so on. So this opens up the universe. This is the modern way. But in 1922, they already had, here's a book from 1920, and it's showing a motor in the middle and 2 generators on either side. And what was it used for? It was used to raise the voltage of direct current trolley lines. As trolley lines expanded into the suburbs and started to link up between cities. Over 85% of the urban transport, of people's transport, in Europe and North America in 1922 was by electricity. It wasn't by fuel. That was for the rich. Their aristocrats had a Rolls Royce or something in the country estate. And what happened was that the poor felt crowded, like in the trolleys, and it was slow. So they aped the aristocracy. They wanted cars. And in the 30s, you get this mass campaign to make, Hitler highways, and not Hitler highways yet, that was after the war, and sell everybody a Chevrolet or a Ford, right? And so, they're big and heavy, these generators. The ones I just showed you weigh 10 pounds or something, and are a negligible weight or nearly negligible in an electronic car. So let's drop the electric car completely. It's an electronic car. It's a parallel to the pod that's, that's communicating all over the planet, right now. And all of the electronic devices, from outer space beyond the solar system and circling the Earth, along with lots of alien flying saucers that they don't tell you about except a few people, and so on, right? Of different technical peaks, and a lot of poisons that they're saying are flying saucers, like orbs and chemtrails, a phosgene being produced by the interaction of sunlight with chemicals, and so on and so forth, poisoning the planet, putting us in a gas chamber. So, we hope for that part to stop, and that's what this is all about. Let's get the electronic part, and having small input cause a sufficient output to drive your light cars at first, and then they improve it and they'll drive the trucks and everything else, right? And long distances and so on and so forth. I mean, Kitty Hawk had an airplane going, I think 288 feet or something, right? And within 20 years they were going 1,000 miles and going around the world 30 or 40 years later. So, don't say, this is just for small things. No, it ain't for scooters. We got electric scooters. They can use heavy batteries. But even there, it's a pain in the nuts, and a lot of them are using fuel scooters so that they don't have to haul around the damn batteries, right? And they make the lead batteries cheaper than the lithium ions and so on and so forth, and everything is treated as a sales point. This is all old hat now. We need cars that are run by ambient and electronic devices like this. So that's it, and I hope, that you all realize you're alien hybrids from many interventions over the last few million years. and that they only have to add or change a few genes in order to, like, enhance your perceptual or intellectual capabilities, and so on and so forth, and that the people who are the most aware of this will come forward and finish this project of getting rid of fuel vehicles on the planet Earth in toot sweet, rapid motion, next 5 years. Bye. John, cut.